right, welcome to a special Universal Basic Kalshi Guys podcast. We thought that it was important to come in anytime the end of a civilization was nigh. Amir is here with me. What's up, Amir?
Uh, Existential dread.
All right, tell me about the existential dread.
Well, 5 a.m. this morning, Trump decides to essentially threaten to bomb Iran and end an entire civilization. And it scared the crap out of people so much so that the White House had to walk his statements back, claiming that there's no actual arming of nuclear weapons and there won't be an Armageddon on a Tuesday and April 7th. And Trump insisted that still he was going to wipe out Iran and refuse Iran's 10-point plan.
Did you personally experience a level of existential dread?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it was scary, and I think a lot of people were kind of brushing it off because this is something that they kind of expected from Trump. But this was new, and it almost seemed like he was going to go through with it because it just seemed like he was pigeonholed and no other kind of certain terms could get out of the situation that he put
When you
himself.
say go through with it, what did you go through with?
Maybe an
What
actual
did you
ground
think?
invasion of Tehran, some kind of Japan-esque bombing of different cities in Iran. I didn't
Hmm.
actually think the nuclear option was on the table, but it was, in my opinion, well, I thought it was going to be something grandiose.
I'm really glad that Kalshi didn't have a market on whether a nuclear strike would be launched. So that's very good. Um, hmm. All right. I think I interpreted the events somewhat differently. Um, I from my standpoint, all he does is he lives continually in a TV show that's where the next episode is being teased. His frame of reference is entirely the 1980s. And so,
Mhm.
in television in the 1980s, there's always a cliffhanger before commercial, right? When people used to watch things on network television with regular commercials. And so he's just getting you to keep tuning in. And, that tweet, which was insane, um, I just think he views it as a way to have you stay tuned. Uh,
What
I,
benefit would he get from that?
okay, so you're going to have to differentiate what the actual benefit is from what
Right.
I think
What is
he
perceived?
perceives to be the
Right.
benefit from it.
Right.
I think he perceives the benefit to be, I just think he thinks you win every news cycle. And I think he thinks that attention is always a positive. So anytime they're talking about you, it's a win. Um, okay, I can't channel that as a human being. I don't understand why anybody would want to have that level of attention. I don't think he thinks about how much existential dread it causes for people. Um, but I didn't think he was going to launch a nuclear attack. That wasn't like where my brain went. My brain
Mhm.
just went to he doesn't have a plan. Um,
Which is significantly like that's maybe the scariest scenario of them all.
okay, I mean, we're always going to try to connect this to some type of wagering proposition, but I mean, if you haven't reached that, if you're not scared by him, then you haven't been paying attention. There's so many. Look, actually, you and I are kind of similar in that I think we're both principally civil libertarians.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm definitely very left leaning and progressive, but I think you and I would both die over freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly. So I'm not, and we're both, I think, anti woke.
Mhm.
Whatever, I'm an anti woke liberal, you're an anti woke, whatever you are. Um, he is aberrational in so many regards. Trump has completely reformulated the world order in 15 months, vastly, vastly more consequential than his first term was. I
Agreed.
mean, there is no historical precedent for this where the United States would have been engaging in an action like this without allies. I mean, I guess actually the war in Iraq was effectively launched without allies. Um, I think Palau was on our side during the Iraqi war, but there was the pretense. I mean, Bush talked about a coalition of the willing. I mean, Trump has abandoned any pretense of trying to, muster international sentiment behind this. So it's just
Right.
him and Israel. It's terrifying. I mean, terrifying. It's just terrifying to have somebody with that much power who is unconstrained by norms, uh, both domestic and international.
I couldn't agree more. It's shocking though that you know the team up between Israel and the United States has led to this much actual passiveness from everybody else. I mean, sure, you had France, disagree with what Trump's doing, but that was all it was. It was disagreement. There was no active pushback from any credible leader on this, and the actual ramifications warrant some kind of legitimate pushback, some kind of sanctions, or any kind of action that really could have got him to the table to listen.
I'm going to look it up as soon as we're done. I think it's passivity, not, but, um, well, Iran is a deeply problematic regime, and regime change. I mean, John Bolton was just making this argument over the weekend, would have been a legitimate justification for going to war with Iran. Now, that would have required a prolonged detailed case to be made to the American public.
Mhm.
Of course, it's completely contrary to everything that Trump has said, that MAGA stood for. So I think part of the passiveness or passivity, whichever one it is, I think there's lots of reasons to be disturbed by Iran.
To an extent, because you've heard a lot of they're the greatest state sponsor of terrorism. They want death to America, death to Israel. There's a reason for that, right? We meddled in their in their politics and their inner economy for a very very long time, and this has been the case with a lot of other imperialistic United States actions. Oh, in the Middle East, we have dominated, basically tried to dominate their economy. Sanctioned them to economic death at times, and the pushback is not unwarranted from the Iranians.
I'm not really trying to. Fair enough. All
Mhm.
I'm trying to say is, I think you cited the example of France, the United Kingdom. I think it would be odd for them to come in and say, we stand with Iran, because they would be
Right.
standing with a repressive, totalitarian, theistic regime. So I think they disagree strongly with the conclusion, the process by which the process by which the conclusion was reached, even though they might, in a hold your nose sort of way, like if there really could be a quickie regime change, um, they might be okay with that. So that's why I think you see, some ambiguity in their response.
I'm in agreement with that, except for the fact that Iranians, even those who oppose the current regime, have actually shown now support. It could be the case that MAGA, forever Trumpers hated Biden, but I'm sure that if Russia came, and tried to attack the United States and try to remove Biden from power, even those MAGA Republicans would probably get behind the president and try to defend their country. And this has been now the case. Like, as soon as Trump's tweet went out, you saw people essentially, even artists who's currently who disapprove of the regime go out, start make videos. They're in on these bridges. They're making human shield basically, and the power plants. They're actually is now a stronger Iranian ethos towards the regime, and now people are kind of more in agreement of that. They hate the United States and Western intervention.
That makes perfect sense to me, because there has been no cogent justification for the war that's been offered,
Right.
right? So this has just been a naked assertion of American power, as opposed to, we're here to bring democracy or to protect, the oppressed Shiites.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
oppressed
so,
individuals.
yeah. So if there had been a cogent justification offered, then you could imagine some people rallying behind that, but nobody just wants bullying. And so that is the Stephen Miller justification for power that's been offered. It's just,
Mm.
it's straight out of Clausewitz. If you remember your
Totally.
19th century Prussian war literature, it's just power does what power will. That has not, since World War II, been the basis for America's operation in the international theater. America has engaged greatly in building soft power. I mean,
Yeah.
Douglas MacArthur's presence in Japan after World War II was entirely constructive, right? So we've, instead of trying to enforce punitive pieces, see World War I leading into World War II, America has understood the lessons of history and tried to rebuild and partner with the nations that it defeated, vanquished, and where there is conflict. I mean, it's been justified. Okay, so Korea, Vietnam, or their resistance to the spread of communism, domino theory, there was at least a cogent justification for it. We are in favor of America stands with representative democracy. It's
Mhm.
just not present here. So there is, I mean, Americans don't support it. How could Iranians possibly support this?
Right.
So,
Right. And going back to what you said about Trump's essentially trying to recreate a TV reality show and get people to tune in. I do think people are tuning in. They're tuning in heavily, but I don't think this is going to have a positive effect that, no press is bad press type of, thing that Trump said in the past. I think this is really bad press for him, particularly because we were doing fine, at least within these specific parameters when it comes to the price of oil, when it comes to the price of gas, energy, food. We were doing fine. Gas prices were averaging before this all started anywhere from 2.79 to $3. Diesel was, about 50 cents over that. And now they've nearly doubled in price and they will not go down. Why? Because Trump now has to agree to worse off terms than where we were just a month ago. So essentially, he started this whole thing to, I don't know, try to get more oil out of Iran, to try to do the regime change, which I don't even think that was his entire goal. And he's now put the United States in a much worse position to where we're going to now suffer economically for the next, at the very least, couple of months, if not a couple of years.
well, I agree with that. I mean, there's no doubt that the Iranian conflict has been unpopular, and as you made the point in the past, as we feel the repercussions, both in gas prices, but farm agricultural prices, whatever produce, as time goes by, it's going to be more unpopular. I still don't think it drives Trump's approval rating, his net approval rating, below 35%. I think his core supporters are just
Mhm.
going to engage in a massive confirmation kind of cognitive
Right.
distortion and just justify it. Um, but I mean, many Republicans have. Ron Johnson's distanced himself from it. Lisa Murkowski's already distanced himself from it. It's politically very disadvantageous. And I think in the ceasefire, which has, you know, been implemented even over the past hour, I mean, I just think he's dealing with the political reality that he can't continue down this path.
I I agree with you. I just hate when I continue to use this example, but I feel like he demonstrates a certain group of Americans, and I'm going to go back to Tucker Carlson here because he was as pro Trump can get before, right? And just on Friday, when Trump did his praise be to Allah tweet on before Easter Sunday, and then what railed against the Iranians, Tucker immediately released a segment on, how dare Trump, profess to be as equal to God. This is not some kind of ideological. It is a terrible, terrible play, according to Tucker. And just today, I mean, he's essentially completely detached himself from Trump and said that this is not something that should be done, that this is very dangerous rhetoric, and this is not something that he can stand behind. And he, in my opinion, influences a lot of American votes. And he might have put Trump over the edge in the 2024 elections as well.
Okay, I mean, I agree with Everything you said is factual to me. I mean, he's deeply alienated Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is influential. If you want to put that to a yes, no, does that change my judgment? I still don't believe that Trump's approval rating is going to go below 33%. Now,
Mm,
you're talking, I mean, just think about what it means for his approval rating, the net average, which is 40%, to go down by a full percentage point. So,
mm.
what does that mean? 3 million Americans have shifted their views. Now, of course, we're not polling 3 million Americans, but that's
Right.
the idea. So, if Tucker Carlson, persuades 10 million people, and I
Hmm.
don't really believe that there are 10 million people whose votes are directly determined by Tucker Carlson. Okay, then, that drove his approval rating down to 37%. At a 37% approval rating, if the generic ballot shifts by another 2 or 3 points, the Democrats are going to win historic margins in the midterm election. I still don't think, as a statistical matter, though, that it's
Hmm.
possible for Trump to get down below 35, 34%. I just think that you're going to see Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is going to capture sort of the universe of whatever potentially malleable voters there are out there,
Hmm.
and they'll shift. But you're going to get to a floor. There are some people who don't give a shit what Tucker Carlson says, who don't give a shit what Lisa Murkowski or Ron Johnson says. They're just with Trump, right or wrong. And it's because it is too much of a cognitive distortion to admit that the person you backed was a mercurial, arbitrary, reckless person who never had a plan at any point. And so I just don't think it goes. I just don't think it goes down that much more. But it doesn't need to go down that much more for the Democrats to reclaim the House. It needs to go
Right.
down significantly, though, for them to reclaim the Senate. Um, all right. So let's just talk about a couple of markets.
Yeah.
I saw a big movement in one. Uh, I think I know what your answer to this will be: the chance of Iran becoming a democracy within the defined terms. What's your view on whether that's changed or not?
Well, before, if I thought that it wasn't happening at all, I now think that there is no universe where that's happening because, again, Iranians, those who did not support the current regime, now are getting behind it, right? So you've had the inverse effect of what you wanted to do in Iran, and it's at 100% not happening for me.
Um, shift you. I completely agree with that. There's no chance. Reza Pahlavi, any shift for you on that?
He's gone. He's not even in the picture anymore. You don't even see him in news cycles anymore because of how where he was positioning himself with Trump and how unpopular Trump is, and vis-a-vis that, so is Pahlavi can be.
I completely agree with that. I mean, it's actually, I'm looking as we're having this conversation, the chance of his visiting Iran is still rated at 18%. So you could get no shares at 82 cents. It's actually crazy.
I
I
agree.
just,
Remember before when I said that if he had
just
visited
bought
Iran,
some.
remember before when I had said that if he'd visit Iran, he'd be beheaded? Okay, I was kind of joking about that. He would actually he would get harmed if he
Yeah.
visited Iran,
Okay.
if he was let in the first place.
Now, I want to just talk. Have you looked at the Iran nuclear deal market?
I have, yeah.
Oh, I
It's
actually was hoping that you hadn't, but you have. Okay. So just so do you remember what you thought before you looked? Like, did you have a moment where you thought to yourself that Trump's extraordinary threat in his Truth Social post last night, how that was going to impact this market? Did
I
you have
think he
that
would.
type of thought?
Well, no, I just thought it would embolden the Iranians even more towards
Meaning,
building a nuclear weapon. Meaning
meaning that
the
the chance of a nuclear deal would go down, right?
significantly correct.
Okay. Now the market, it's actually gone up. So the market perception is that the chance of a U.S. nuclear deal has gone up. All right, just what do you think about that? Because I have a couple of things to say about it.
Yeah, I think people think that because now Trump is willing to do a 2 week ceasefire, that maybe also Iran's open to some kind of deal making, and therefore, they perceive a deal to be possible in the near
But the
future.
price shift preceded the ceasefire. So I think I think it's the belief that strong arming the Iranians would force them into reaching a deal.
Has that historically ever happened? That's a
No,
rhetorical
no, 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 no,
question.
no. Okay, I'm not saying I agree with this
Right,
reasoning.
right,
I
right.
was shocked by this. Okay,
Yeah.
we're going to bomb. I mean, this proposition reduces to we're going to bomb you into oblivion,
Mhm,
and then I look and see whether they're amenable to negotiating with us.
mhm.
Oh, yeah, they're more amenable. I mean, it's odd. Okay, so I just want to flag something as a better. I'm not super heavily invested in this market.
Mhm.
When we had our prior conversations, I agree that there's no chance that Iran is going to become a democracy. Reza Pahlavi is not going to become the next leader of Iran. But those propositions they're trading at kind of my base return that I really need. It's just kind of a wash to me between keeping that and invested in Trump not getting impeached or
Mhm.
something else that I regard as a lock. Okay. But I do have a little bit of a bet. I did make a little bit of a bet on the nuclear deal. And I just want to flag for people a heuristic bias to which people fall prey. And I'm not urging like a particular position on this, but I'm urging awareness of this heuristic bias. So it's people tend to fall prey. It's called bandwagon effect, right? So people are very deeply influenced by the behavior of others. And this is, when I think for myself, why am I better at this game than other people? I think it's awareness of heuristic biases. That does not really affect me. So I thought to myself, oh, well, the chance of an Iran nuclear deal is out the window now. And
Mm,
then I went online and I'm like, oh, I actually can get a better price on that than I could have gotten yesterday.
mm.
And so I buy. I actually buy more than I otherwise would have bought. Most people lose confidence because of that. And this is why it's crucial to have your theory of the case, why you think it won't happen, why you think you're right, and why you think other people are wrong. And I think what you said is the reason that is what people are getting wrong is people think, okay, he's going to strong arm them. And because they're fond of Trump or think that that mode of negotiating encourages deal making. But what you said is exactly right. Historically, the historical base rate of tactics like that producing negotiated outcomes is poor. Okay, and so I, the fact that you look at the market and the price has gone in the opposite direction, it doesn't matter what people think. And that's a very, very tough thing to do as an investor. So, I've had examples like this. It's true in the stock market too. It's the same thing. Okay, if I think whatever Xerox should be
Mhm.
trading at $100, and I go on, and it's fallen to 50. Okay, there's a lot of people who feel like they have to sell. Goes to 10 cents. They buy more. So we haven't discussed this yet. One of my biggest positions is I'm very long on Pete Buttigieg to be the Democratic nominee.
Mm.
His price started going down. Okay, so I'm going to look. Did anything change? Did I miss it? Has he decided to stay at home with his family? And I don't think this is a lock by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think Buttigieg has a significantly greater than 20 to 1 chance of being the Democratic nominee. I think Buttigieg will run, and I think he's very likely to win New Hampshire, in which case he's going to be the favorite briefly.
Mm.
Okay. So as the price goes down, I do not start thinking that I'm wrong. My
Right.
theory of the case remains the same. And I have reasons why I think people have underestimated Buttigieg, which is in part because they're sort of overinvested in Gavin Newsom and he's just a front runner. So I think
Mhm.
they're bandwagoning with Gavin Newsom. Again, not to say that Gavin Newsom won't be the Democratic nominee, just that I don't think he has a 33% chance to do it. And so it's very important when you have your understanding of why you believe what you believe and why you believe that other people are wrong, that you not be affected when you actually go to place your bet.
I couldn't agree more. I think what you're essentially
Could you
describing is
agree more? Wait, could you
I
please agree
couldn't
more?
couldn't agree more because what you're essentially explaining is critical thinking. on just, and apply to this specific scenario. And I think it draws to another, you can draw another conclusion from this, is that you actually need to be read on what you're, espousing, or what you're betting on, or what you're arguing, right? If one look at a nuclear deal, right? If you just look at the JCPOA, something that Obama put together, he was no dove in the Middle East. He was known as the butcher of Libya, and even he couldn't strong arm the Iranians into a nuclear deal. He had to put in so many concessions into the JCPOA that the Trump administration and every Republican ever since has just bashed him for it nonstop. And just looking at that, you could have known that Trump couldn't really get a nuclear deal favorable to the United States out of Iran this time around. Right? It's not an easy thing to do. And I think, I want to talk a little bit briefly about energy markets. As soon as, West Texas Intermediate and Brent went down after the ceasefire calls, they decreased about 13% in price. I think both of them around the same. And people just now suddenly think that stuff's going to get cheap. Diesel's going to get cheap. Oil's going to get cheap. I don't actually think that's the case. And I think Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley did exactly what you did. And they're still having, oil price per barrel price around 140, 150, because nothing has actually changed. In fact, again, the US and the West are in a significantly worse position than when they were just a month ago.
That's what value investing is.
Right.
Is you have a theory of value and you just have to hold to it. The market is irrelevant. That's not to say that information, you don't revise your estimate based on information. So if the Times had reported that Iran was trying to negotiate a deal and somehow, it was unprecedentedly quick, okay, well, I'm going to get scared at that. But I'm not scared at other people betting against me. And it's very tough. It's very tough. But, that's the way you have to go through this. And I think the essence of what we think the podcast is about is trying to teach people what these heuristic biases are to which the human brain falls prey, and how you can work on yourself so that you're less susceptible to them, because it's actually relevant not just to investing, gambling, whatever this is. It's relevant to life. I mean, people interpret lots of social interactions in the world in unconstructive ways.
Yeah. Well, I'm hopeful. I'm still hopeful that the Strait of Hormuz will open, trade will reconvene. I just, like you said, still know that a lot has changed in the past month, and mostly in favor of the Iranians, and they're just going to have a lot more bargaining chips at their disposal to do what they want to do. And I think we've lost in this process so many allies that were crucial to our economic stability in the U.S. that we're going to see a lot of our positions slowly degrade.
My friend, when we spoke on the phone earlier, you made a reference to the Cuban Missile Crisis, which I mostly dismissed as historically not analogous. However, there is one lesson from the Cuban Missile Crisis that I think is very important here. So, have you ever read 13 Days by Robert Kennedy?
I've not.
Okay. I know what big readers your generation is. It's a great book. It's gripping. Kennedy was the Attorney General. He's in the room throughout it. Okay. So the gist of the Cuban Missile Crisis is that an American spy plane observes the Russians are starting to build a nuclear missile facility in Cuba in response to the U.S. having placed missiles in England and in Turkey, and a perception that Cuba was going to ally with China. My parents say they thought they were going to die. I mean, it was serious. One of the things that happened is Khrushchev sends Kennedy a telegram, sends him 2 telegrams, one of which is full of bluster, which was characteristic of Khrushchev, and the other was more conciliatory. And it left an off-ramp, and the United States, Soviets removed or didn't deliver the missile launching capacity, and the U.S. removed weapons from Turkey without any public concession. And what has to happen here, and I have, by the way, I've never heard of the Pakistanis being the mediators in conflict before. Um, God bless. I hope they've got it. I hope they've got it in them. But Trump needs to have a face-saving way out of this, because that is the scary part of it. Because Trump will not admit defeat, and he's going to need a plausible way to save face and say that he's extracted some concessions from the Iranians. And that is what gives me pause. If that doesn't happen, I don't think he would drop a nuclear bomb, but I could see him bombing the shit out of them for another 3 months. And
Right.
that would be a tragedy.
If I were to put myself in his head, you are aware of the taco, right? Trump will always chicken out. He's already done it. He already claimed victory because he thinks that because he's had the 5 a.m. 6 a.m. Truth Social that threatened the Iranians so badly that he now has an off ramp with the deal, the 10-point deal that he's now taking.
I
Right?
actually didn't know about the taco. Is that who coined that phrase? Do you know?
I don't know who coined it, but he's done it about a dozen times now, back and forth with Iran.
Oh,
And
sure, sure, sure.
it is at the detriment of, I mean, the US media is at fault of this, right? They could have reported extensively about the 10-point deal, how Iran put that on the table, said, here's a very, very reasonable package of, concessions that you can make. And it would really actually benefit all parties within this conflict. And they just didn't report on it. Nobody saw really what that deal had to, all the different concepts of the deal. And now Trump gets to say, well, look at this amazing deal that I basically drew up when it was really the Iranians who proposed it. And he was the one who just accepted it a few hours ago.
Okay. Well, I do see that he chickens out a lot. Guy's got a lot of power at his disposal. I don't have any confidence in anything. All right. We will be back in a couple of days with our regular episode to talk about fixing in markets, or how we assess the likelihood that markets are fixed, and how you can price it into your investment decisions, and how you can steer clear of it as an investor. Amir, how should folks help us out?
Definitely like this video wherever you see it, whether it's a clip or a full video on Spotify or YouTube. Make sure that you follow us and comment in all of our comment sites.
And you can email us at admin@ubkguys.com. We'll see you in a few days, provided no civilization hasn't come to an end.
Be well, folks.
Universal Basic Calci Guys was created and is hosted by Michael Horahan and Evan Mandery. Our producer is Amir Rasulov. Our theme song is Passing Trains by Nathan Eklund. You can follow us on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram at UBKGuys, or email us at admin@ubkguys.com. The content on Universal Basic Calci Guys is for informational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute trading, financial, or investment advice. Nothing discussed on this show should be construed as a recommendation to buy or sell contracts on any prediction market. Trading on prediction markets involves real financial risk, and you could lose money. Always do your own research and consider your own financial situation before trading. The hosts may and often do hold positions in markets discussed on the show. Views expressed by guests are their own and do not reflect the positions of the show or its hosts. If you or someone you know is struggling with problem gambling, free and confidential help is available 24/7 through the National Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-522-4700 or visit ncpgambling.org.